If you notice these 5 signs, your struggles are already ending. Life has a way of testing us. We find ourselves in storms we never expected, facing nights that seem endless. It is easy, during those times, to believe that we have been singled out for misfortune, that we are cursed, or that we are being punished by fate. And yet, there is a timeless truth that generations of thinkers, philosophers, and everyday survivors have discovered. The darkest moments often precede the dawn. The struggle you are in now is not the end of your story. It is a chapter, one that is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for something greater. But how do we know when the storm is passing, when our own soul is shifting toward freedom? How can we recognize that our suffering is no longer something crushing us, but something we are rising above? The signs are subtle at first, and they rarely announce themselves with fanfare. But if you pay attention, you may notice them. These signs are not predictions about external circumstances, your finances, your relationships, your job, but about internal transformation. And when they begin to appear, your struggle may already be ending, not because the world has changed, but because you have. The first sign, you stop needing pity. One of the earliest and most surprising shifts happens when you no longer crave pity. In the beginning, when pain is fresh, it is natural to want to be seen. We want someone to witness our suffering, to say, "I see what you are going through and it is unfair." Sympathy feels like a form of validation, a way of proving that what we endured was real. But over time, as we mature through the struggle, we begin to lose interest in performing our wounds. There comes a moment when we no longer want to tell the story just to hear someone say, "Poor you." Instead, we want to tell the story as a testimony of survival, or perhaps we no longer feel the need to tell it at all. I have felt this shift personally, and it was one of the most liberating experiences of my life. For months, even years, I had a narrative I repeated about the unfairness of what I had endured. It was not until I began to feel quietly strong that I realized I did not need anyone's applause for my endurance. I was proud of myself privately, and that was enough. This shift does not mean we isolate ourselves or deny our pain. Rather, it means that we no longer need to outsource our sense of worth. When we stop measuring our value by whether others sympathize with us, we begin to measure it by whether we are living with integrity and strength. This is profoundly Stoic. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, warned against wasting our limited time worrying about the opinions of others. He wrote that we should focus not on applause, but on living according to reason and virtue. And when you begin to do that, when your inner compass replaces the need for external validation, the struggle begins to lose its power over you. It no longer defines you. It no longer cages you. The second sign, you move from why me to what now. Perhaps the clearest indicator that you are reaching the end of your struggle is a change in the questions you ask yourself. When hardship first strikes, it is almost impossible not to cry out, "Why me?" We feel victimized, singled out, cursed. This question is natural, but it is also paralyzing because it looks backward. It keeps us chained to the past, replaying injustices in our mind, rehearsing grievances. There is a subtle but powerful shift when we replace that question with another. What now? This question does not deny the pain, but it accepts the present reality and demands action. I remember a particularly difficult year in my own life when everything seemed to fall apart. Health issues, financial problems, and strained relationships all arrived at once. For months, I was stuck in why me. I spent hours ruminating about the unfairness, feeling resentful, waiting for someone to fix things. It was only when I asked, "What now?" that momentum returned to my life. Suddenly, I started taking small actions, making a plan to recover financially, rebuilding my habits, reaching out to people I could trust. The situation did not change overnight, but my relationship to it did. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When we internalize this, what now becomes a kind of compass. It pulls us out of passive despair and pushes us toward active participation in life. And once we are acting, no matter how small the steps, the end of the struggle begins to appear on the horizon. The third sign, gratitude for the struggle itself. This is perhaps the most paradoxical sign, and yet one of the most powerful. There comes a day, sometimes months, sometimes years after the crisis, when you look back at the suffering you endured and you actually feel grateful for it. This does not mean you enjoyed it or that you wish it had happened. It means you have come to see what it gave you: strength, perspective, wisdom, resilience. The nights that felt unbearable were the nights that shaped you. The betrayals that broke your heart also revealed who was truly with you and who was not. The failures that humiliated you also stripped away illusions and forced you to grow. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote that difficulties strengthen the mind just as labor strengthens the body. Gratitude is the ultimate proof that the pain no longer owns you. When you can look at the very events that once crushed you and say, "Thank you, you have already won." Gratitude transforms the weight of suffering into the platform on which you now stand taller. I once went through a personal and professional crisis that nearly shattered me. Years later, I am astonished to find that I am thankful for that time. Not because it was easy, but because without it, I would never have grown into the person I am now. It was the crucible that burned away my arrogance, my illusions, and my unhealthy attachments. It is now the reference point I use to measure progress. Not how happy I am, but how much I have learned and how much stronger I have become. The fourth sign, the end of fear of loss. Fear is one of the most powerful chains that keep us in suffering. Much of our pain comes not from the event itself, but from our desperate attempt to avoid loss. We grip people tightly, we cling to status, we try to secure comfort, and yet life is constantly teaching us that these things are not permanent. People leave, possessions break, fortunes change. When we finally accept this truth, not just intellectually, but emotionally, we step into a profound freedom. This is a central Stoic insight. We must distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. When we invest our identity in what can be taken away, we make ourselves hostages. Epictetus warned that attachment to externals makes us slaves. But when we no longer tremble at the thought of losing them, when we can say, "If it is taken from me, I will still be myself," then the world loses its power to crush us. This is not cold detachment. It is not nihilism. It is a higher form of love because it allows us to enjoy things deeply without fear. We can appreciate relationships more fully when we are not terrified of losing them. We can enjoy possessions without being defined by them. We can live with dignity even when circumstances change. I have seen this truth play out in my own life. The more I tried to control everything, to guarantee outcomes, to secure promises, the more anxious I became. It was only when I began to accept impermanence that I could finally breathe. I could appreciate what I had without trying to make it eternal. The chains loosened not because the world became more stable, but because I did. The fifth sign, finding meaning in the pain. Perhaps the final and most transformative sign that your struggles are ending is when you begin to see meaning in the pain. You stop seeing it as punishment and start seeing it as a forge. You realize that the suffering is shaping you into someone new. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that the obstacle itself is part of your path, not a detour from it. When you see pain this way, it stops being an enemy. It becomes a teacher. Every wound becomes an inscription on your soul, carving depth into your character. Every loss becomes a clearing that makes space for something purer. Every betrayal strips away illusions and forces you closer to the truth. This is the point at which you stop waiting for your struggles to end because you realize they already have, not because the pain disappeared, but because its power over you did. I cannot overstate how life-changing this perspective can be. I once saw my suffering as meaningless chaos. Now I see it as raw material. It still hurts, but it also gives me something: clarity, compassion, courage. Pain becomes fuel instead of chains. Becoming unshakable. The end of struggle is not about life becoming easier. It is about you becoming unshakable. This is the great secret of Stoic philosophy. We cannot control the world, but we can master our response to it. When we change, the world does not suddenly become gentle, but its power to harm us diminishes. This internal transformation is what makes the 5 signs so powerful. When you stop needing pity, when you move to what now, when you feel gratitude, when you release fear, and when you see meaning in the pain, you have become someone new. You are no longer a victim of fate, but a partner with it. You may still face storms, but you now have the strength to walk through them without being destroyed. Living the transformation. These 5 signs are not just things to observe passively, they are qualities you can cultivate. You can choose to stop measuring yourself by others' opinions. You can deliberately practice asking, "What now?" instead of "Why me?" You can keep a gratitude journal, even if all you can write is, "I am grateful I survived today." You can practice letting go of attachments by reflecting on what you would do if you lost certain things, not to scare yourself, but to prepare yourself. And you can seek meaning by asking how your pain might be used to help others. Each time you practice these things, you accelerate your passage through the storm. You become not just a survivor, but a stronger, wiser version of yourself. And this is why the end of struggle is not merely a moment to wait for, but a transformation to participate in. The 5 signs that your struggle is ending are not distant miracles. They are signals of inner growth, milestones on the path to resilience. If you notice them, the end of pity-seeking, the shift toward action, gratitude for hardship, freedom from fear of loss, and meaning discovered in pain, know that you are crossing from one chapter of your life into another. Your circumstances may not have changed yet, but you have, and when you change, everything changes. The storm may not be over, the night may still be dark, but inside you, dawn is breaking.